allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, so we'll start off on my left.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Christy Ayana, the Town Administrator.
Kevin Johnson, Selectman. Dave Tiffin, Selectman.
And Matt Gilling, also Selectman.
In the back row, we have some of our town employees. We have Katie Neal back there. Katie Neal. Recreation. Parks and Rec. Don Miskill, Midfield. Darcy Kuchar, Harbor Master. Tim Clark is hiding over there. And we got Fred True back there, our new Harpsville Administrator, Fire Administrator. Oh, sorry, I can't think of David. No support person in the room tonight, Town Assessor. We got Mark McIntyre, our Town Planner here. Mary Ann Neff over there, head of every committee in town. And road commissioners here somewhere, Ron Fonziani. Yeah, we have two remote listeners this year. Yeah, they're here somewhere. Yep. All right. We have several items we're going to start with tonight. We're going to start with the vision of the. How about now? All right. Anyway, we just had, as everybody knows, we had the reevaluation done, and we believe it's finished. But Steve here is going to fill us in the blanks.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Steve Whelan, Project Manager for Vision. I have a small PowerPoint presentation. We can just go over what we did. So the different steps for reevaluation, sales review. What we did was visited every property, which includes the sales review because they're part of the overall data collection for the whole town. Market analysis, again, we're looking at the sales and comparing them. The valuation part, the field review at the end, which is double checking the listers or people that are listing the properties, then supervisors will drive by the property later in the process to make sure that the property listers did a correct job or did it right. And then we have the informal hearings, which I will be starting soon. Once you receive your new value, you have a certain number of days, which will be listed on the letter, to call and make an appointment and talk with a Vision employee. And that would be either by phone or in person in the town. So if you can't make it to the town, and for whatever reason, you can always call and make an appointment on the phone. And then once you get the results of that, everybody has the right to appeal further with the assessor's office. On the data collection, we're reviewing for the exterior, styles, quality, condition of the properties, story heights, materials, year built, checking all the measurements, redoing all of them, the topographic of the land possibly. So that was just a few of the things, most of the things that we're looking for on the outside. For the interior, the quality of the interior, the condition, overall condition, bath and bed counts, types of different floors and finishes for the inside we looked at, kitchens, baths, the heating, AC, whether it has AC or not, attics finished or basements not finished or whether they have them or not, other amenities, fireplaces, elevators, etc. that could add to the value of the property. So we were analyzing the recent sales. There was 225 valid sales. A valid sale is the seller and owner don't know each other. So we throw out all the relative sales that the seller and buyer know each other, same last names, zero amounts, $100 amounts, all those are tossed out. So those would be considered the 225, would consider our sample size, and they're researched and proven to be valid. Typically we do 2 years. Sometimes we talk to local developers to get more information. We're always trying to get more information only within Harpswell, not outside the town, so nothing farther with that. We're also looking at the income For income producing properties, which would be commercial properties, we sent out income and expense statements. And that would be asking, for example, if you own a warehouse but you rent it, how much you're renting the warehouse space for. And then we'd take that rent or that information and apply it to the other warehouses. That's typically only done for commercial properties that produce income, and it's not used on any residential. The data collection, verifying everything that we can find out in the field. Buildings establish neighborhoods, so there's different sections of town which are a little more desirable than other sections of town, and then that's taken into account also. 3 approaches with value. The cost approach, which typically is price per square foot. If something happens to it, you have to rebuild it from scratch. The sales comparison approach, which would be the 225 valid sales that we had within the town. And then the income approach, again, used only for the commercial properties, but when we can apply it to the income properties based on the rents, we'll do that. Recent sales of vacant improved properties were all researched. Further along in the computer and out in the field, we actually visited all the properties that sold. Local building costs, we use a national source also, and then you fine tune it for the Hopswell area. That helps in any new construction. We look at that also. Sales of the older houses analyzed, determine local depreciation. It's always a tough fact, and obviously the new ones don't depreciate. You don't have as much depreciation on that. Land models based on any recent land sales and the vacant properties. So any sales and you had a bunch of land sales also, so we'll use that as our basis for the land values. Recent sales, we talked about that, vacant properties. A research verified to be arm's length, which means the seller and the buyer didn't know each other. Data collected on all the properties. We went out and visited every single property, and that adds to it. And also the sales can be used to set the land values. For example, if the house sells for $700,000, we figure out that the house is worth $500,000. You just subtract the two, and you come up with a residual approach, and maybe $200,000 left over for the land, for example. Recent sales of the commercial properties, investment properties, not typically so much in Harpswell. You really don't have very many involved for the commercial base. Income and expense, again, we sent the data or the questionnaires out to everybody, and if they returned them, we'll use what they said for the market rents, expenses, and vacancies for the few commercial properties you have. And the capitalization rates are only used for income approaches, so that's the value of the net operating income divided by the cap rate. Again, only for commercial, not residential. Reviewing all the values in the town for the field review. So once again, once the data collectors visited every property, then at the end of the process, which is already done now, we did drive by all the properties, have an actual copy of the property record card, and compare the property record card from the computer to what was actually there. So comparable properties, so we look at all the sales all the time. And then going forward, once you receive your values, then we'll analyze what people have to say about certain areas. If we miss something, and we can adjust further from the informal hearings, which will be coming up soon. So the notification of to taxpayers of the new assessment will be coming out real soon with the new increases. The informal hearings will be stated in the letter. We'll have the 800 number, or you can go online and make your own appointments for phone or in person if you want to. During the meetings, reviewing the data, they'll always have a copy of the property record card, so we can go over that to make sure that's accurate in case we didn't get inside your property. Discussing the comparable sales, we'll have sales books. Also online, it has all the sales too, so if you want to do some homework before. And present any information you feel is relevant or considered in the final value. Double checking any things like finished basement, not finished, finished attics, and any other thing like potentially any problem that you think would bring the value down. And then looking at the new rates versus the old rates, using the old versus the new, it's an increase of 49% is the median increase for all of them. Then you can break it down further. The commercial class went up 49 also. The industrial class only went up 15 because I believed it was starting at a higher rate, and the new costs did not justify going up that much. You just have a few of them. So there's 21 parcels, which is less than 1% of the total, all the total properties. Exempt properties went up 49. To the right, it shows how many parcels. There's 159 parcels, and that's 3% of the overall total number of parcels. Open space went up 68%, 43 parcels out of your total. Residential class is 49%, just like the overall class is the median, and that's and then the special use class was 45. So they were all relatively all consistent, except the few, very few, of the industrial class. That was the PowerPoint. I just wanted to say too that we did have 225 valid sales, which I said overall. The overall increase was 49% median. There's approximately 5,100 parcels. We visited all of them. There was 727 vacant lands, which was included. So overall, it was about 4,400 properties. And the entry rate was 39.3%. I just want to say that was very good because our typical is closer to 25. So we got, so that's 15% higher than our average for our company, based on the help from the assessor's office and the PR that was put out. So overall, we had a really good entry rate compared to most places. That's basically it.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Steve? Yeah, want to slide up to the mic? You can hear you.
I'm wondering how in the assessment, how does it take account of the shorefront in the evaluation? And also whether there's been any progress in the effort to reconsider the floodplain line, taking into account elevation as well as nearness to the waterfront.
I'm not exactly sure about the floodplain taking, so we'll take into account if the property floods on a regular basis, or, it depends on how long, it's a 100-year flood or what the problem is. And that is taken into account.
There was a line that was drawn.
Right.
It is. Most of the properties, the ones that are close to the elevations documented by a surveyor. I don't know if in your case that is the case.
So the elevation is part of the.
It's not a part of the evaluation, though.
But it is part of the floodplain line.
Yes.
A lot of the markets, Debbie, the assistant agent, a lot of the properties that are sold have indicated in the flood zone or not in the flood zone. So the majority of the prices already indicate the flood zone in the sale price. So with the adjustments and the assessment, we don't normally do any adjustments for that because it's already in the sale price. So the sale price of the neighborhoods would indicate the areas like flood area more type thing. But not really making adjustments due to your area flooding because the sales would be, that's what we have to base it on, is the sales of the market of the town. Yeah. Yeah.
Ms. Rosenberg, could you go up to the mic so everybody can hear you?
I guess that really reflects your insurance more than assessments.
That's right.
Right, so that's what we don't get involved in.
insurances. We did not get health insurance.
And there was an effort to get the federal, the FEMA, I guess, to reconsider the line of the floodplain that did influence insurance.
So you are bringing up a good point. FEMA has finally approved our flood maps in Harpswell, and the voters had to adopt those maps, which they did. And FEMA recognized some of the additional work that Harpswell paid for to have some of these, I guess, transects, they're called, reevaluated, because the thinking was that FEMA used a really broad brush with its modeling and swept a lot of properties into the floodplain. And so the town did this additional work, was much more, I think, detailed modeling, and it did remove some of these properties from the floodplain. I think the point you're trying to make is whether or not a property in the floodplain gets any adjustment in its assessed value. And I think what I'm hearing from Vision, the company that looked at this, looked at the town and our own assessing department, is it's based on the sale of the property and the properties in the neighborhood. And some people want to buy a home that's close to the water, and they may or may not need insurance. So it's a complicated matter. The new FEMA floodplains come into effect if the property is damaged and you want to rebuild, then you are limited in certain things that you may or may not do, including elevation issues. So I'm trying to respond to your question in sort of a roundabout way.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Bill McEnroe. Hey, thanks for having this meeting. Really do appreciate it. Thanks, Steve, for the presentation. Question I have, I'm in the state of Delaware. They've just had a big issue with Tyler Technologies going through this process. 55% of the properties had to be reassessed. And one of the issues that they had with building costs, material costs skyrocketing versus real estate sales market. So they were going ahead and pricing properties in terms of replacement costs when the sales was easily like 20% below the replacement cost. So I guess the question is, how does your model accommodate that? I know you use both.
I guess we kind of use a combination of both. But our sales are at 99%. So if they were substantially higher on the cost side, then our ratio wouldn't be at 99. And the reason you go up to 99 would be because it's an increasing market and you don't want to do this or pay for this again anytime soon. So you hope that the 99 holds, and if it's 5% a year, then you have some years in there. So with the ratio, that kind of tells us. And then not only that, but we break it out. Once we get the ratios and we get the data set up, then we'll break it out by style, location, lot size, building size, year built. We do it 100 different ways, and we see if they all fall into a range. And it ended up being at 99. So I think it's that close to the sales. So that would tell us that our costs on overpricing it would be high.
Thanks.
Do it.
You gave the average of 49%, but can you give us some idea of the variability, like the standard deviation? The lowest increase was maybe 40% and the highest was 60. Do you have any numbers along those lines?
I didn't bring those numbers with me, but if you talk to the assessor's office, we can supply the assessor's office with that. But yeah, it was a median. So that would be the middle point. So there will be a few that are lower than 49 and there'll be a few higher than 49. But on average, the majority of them are going to be at 49. So you can ask the assessors and you can get a copy of that.
Yeah, thanks again for having this meeting. On the cost approach, the replacement, I'm wondering if there was one figure you used on replacement cost or building cost, what that figure is. And also you mentioned heating, HVAC, air conditioning. I assume that plays into whether a home is seasonal or year-round as a factor as well.
So yeah, absolutely. So if you don't have a heating system and it's seasonal, then obviously, if somebody wanted to make it year round, they're gonna have to buy that. So that is taken into account with everybody's property. Just like if you don't have AC, then it's nice to have it, but if you don't, it's not for free. So it's going to be included. So each little thing does add a little value, but then all the little values do add up with into the total. So what was the other thing?
First thing was the building cost, if there's a figure,
No,
per
so
square foot figure, that
we can get that. We can give that to the assessors, and it's public. But there isn't a standard figure. Each different style of property is a different price. Now they're all pretty similar. For example, we'll just pick a number. Ranches might be $175 because a ranch maybe isn't typically that fancy as far as the inside, the quality of the building. But then if you go up to a colonial, that might be a little bit nicer on the inside where it might have built-ins or crown molding, and that might be like $185, $195. So it's picked up depending upon, just like using an example with a commercial, a metal warehouse might be $45 a square foot, but a bank might be $200 a foot. So depending upon what the use is and what type of property is, it dictates that. But that rate goes through. But again, if you had a ranch that's falling down in poor condition, and it would start out at the 175, then depreciate way down. And then on the other hand, if you had one that's totally been redone, it would go up because they spent the money to bring it up to today's standard. That would be
Thank you again for this meeting. And I'd heard a time frame, but I heard that we were going to find out about the new assessments the end of September. But then the tax bills come out before that time. Is the taxes not going to be affected this year by the assessment?
Basically, we just sent our information to Vision this afternoon, and they are going to start doing the mailing tomorrow. So the mailing will be mailed tomorrow, but on Wednesday, we will have online and on their website, we'll have the new valuations and the data so you can review it as soon as Wednesday. For those that are, the mail does take a little bit longer to get to, but we'll have it on our town website, linked to the Vision website. So, and we'll also have a copy of the letter that we're sending out, a sample letter of what we're sending out to people with the phone number on it, with the dates of when the hearing should be starting next week. Yeah, so you get your letter mailed out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You'll be able to set up meetings or hearings. A lot of people do the information over the phone because they can look at the information online. If you have multi-properties, you can review it online, and if you have concerns, you do need to call, and on your letters will have your PIN numbers, and you just have to indicate your PIN so that they know the locations.
My brother's gonna go to Florida.
That's why I'm saying if you gotta have it online. So if you are able to get a computer, or you can come into the town office, we'll have the information. We can print your property cards also at the Hartselle website. This Wednesday. Wait, what's today?
I think
tomorrow.
this is a good point to be raised, that it's a very condensed schedule. It's like a 2-week period. And we would encourage everyone to go to the website on Wednesday, because that information is going to take a while to get to you by mail. It's being mailed out of Massachusetts, I believe. So again, I would go to the website, and it's a 2-week period in which you can schedule and make this appointment and hold the appointment. All the appointments, I believe, need to be done by the end of this month. And this will impact your 2026 tax bill. But we are encouraged that the mill rate will be going down. It's been $6.66, and we're looking at something slightly below 5, perhaps. These are all preliminary figures, but you should look at that assessed value, and you should contact the 800 number to get your questions asked and answered, because it's a short period of time in which you can do that.
Hi, I have a question about the seasonal properties that are restricted in terms of the length of time that you can reside in them. They're not full-time residences. How did you take that into account when coming up with an assessment? In other words, like my house, you cannot reside in it for more than 270 days per year, which might be something you don't know.
So yeah, that would affect the value. So I suggest that in that case, you come in and talk to us about it, because possibly we didn't know that. So we're valuing it, like a seasonal cottage, typically maybe one that doesn't have a heating system, et cetera, et cetera. So the amount of time you can stay there would be relevant, and that would be a good example of why to make an appointment by phone. Also, I just want to add that when the values hit the website, there's a real good sales search built into it. So, for example, if you had a ranch, you can type in ranch, and it'll give you all the sales that were used in the last 2 years just in Harpswell. Then there's other adjustments to make. For example, if it's 1,000 square feet, you could put in a range, give me 1,000 to 1,500 square feet, and it'll give you that range. So there's a bunch of different windows like that, and that's all the sales that were used in Harpswell are right online, and you can search for yours or anybody else's. Also, you can look up any property in Harpswell, their value by name or address, etc. So it's all going to be out there.
Thanks for your presentation earlier. For properties, Harpswell is a community with quite a few offshore island properties as well, which are notoriously hard to value because there aren't as many sales. I just wanted to see if you could tell us about the process of that and how you assign values for that. And there's not a whole lot of data, and if you feel that those are as accurate as the properties on the mainland.
Yeah, we visited all the islands and did measure all of them, and I think there were a few sales.
Yeah, we had a few sales
We
in
had-
different areas. We did have a few sales on the islands, and we just made sure that these were 99% based on those sales.
Debbie, can you speak into the mic, please?
We're about also at 99% based on the sales for the islands too, based on the adjustments and increases and some decreases and depreciations. A lot of things did go down on your valuations, like if you had outbuildings or wharfs and stuff like that, they were at a higher depreciation, so a lot of that got adjusted down. So there are things that went down, but there are things that did go up, yes.
So a lot of the outbuildings could have went down, but on the other hand, you're starting out at a higher cost. So, if the old days a shed was $20 a foot and now it's $25 a foot, then your cost would be higher, would bring it up, you get more depreciation because it's based on the year. So sometimes it might end up being more of a wash. That, okay, the cost to rebuild that shed or garage is higher per square foot, but now it's older, so you're getting more depreciation. But there will be some decreases depending upon whether it's well maintained or what's going on with it.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. My question is, if the valuations go up by 49% and the mill rate is only going from 6 to 5, say, it's less than 20%, that sort of indicates a windfall for the town. I mean, is the town expecting a big surplus through this process?
No, I mean, we're bound by law to only collect monies for education, the municipal budget, the county budget. The select board's allowed to set the overlay component, but we're not spending any more money. The 2026 budget was adopted by the March town meeting voters, and that's the budget we adhere to. So we're collecting enough to fund those responsibilities, but we're not developing any surplus on the basis of this revaluation. I think the figures we looked at just today, the mill rate might drop about 26%, but this is all preliminary because these hearings are going to happen and there may be some adjustments, so we really don't want to give a very specific mill rate at this point.
I just wanted to say too that during the hearing process, for example, if it was a condominium and somebody came in and they had an issue, and that issue affects the value, we'll change everybody in the condominium if it's one of those types. So it's a more of a garden style. So they maybe in theory didn't come in for a hearing, but we found an issue with the property, and we'll change them all also. And they'll all end up getting another letter in the mail.
Anybody else on this? No? If not, then we'll move on. I believe Mary Ann's going to speak on the water and septic studies that are about to happen.
Good evening, can you hear me? Okay.
I think this will work.
Over the last 2 years, Hartsville has received funding for two projects. I'm sorry?
A little louder, Mary Ann.
All right, we'll try this again. Closer. I know, I'm supposed to swallow, I should know better. Over the last 2 years, Hartsville has received grant funding to fund two projects that you're going to learn about next. And basically, with the help from Bowdoin College, they also are funding 2 interns this summer who are working directly on this project. And their help has been invaluable because they're able to just concentrate on that and get the details done so that we can roll out the project to the public towards the late summer in August. Miriam Oliver Schneider, she's going to talk about our well and septic study, and Katja Kammerer, our future flood risk study. So why don't we start out with Miriam, and then I'll introduce Katja later.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? My name is Miriam. I'm a rising junior at Bowdoin College. I'm studying biology and environmental studies. I'm double majoring and I'm minoring in anthropology. And I'm an intern with the town this summer. And I am working on the 2026 Hartsville drinking water and septic study. So to give you a little bit of an overview, as a result of Hartsville's geography, geology, demographics, the town is facing several challenges with its groundwater resources. And all Hartsville residents and businesses depend on groundwater wells for their water supply. And in order to provide residents with information on how to, oh, the computer disconnected. Sorry. There we go. Okay. In order to provide residents with information on how to preserve and manage your groundwater resources, the town is studying the quantity and quality of our groundwater. So the Conservation Commission received a community action grant sponsored by the Community Resiliency Partnership, which is a department of the Maine Office of Community Affairs, to study our groundwater. And we've also partnered with a local hydrologist to develop a survey that we will roll out to all of you in the next few weeks. So We would appreciate your help in collecting data about our drinking water and septic systems in Harpswell, including where wells are located, how much water wells produce, and what issues you're experiencing with your freshwater supply. Your voluntary survey response will help direct future conservation efforts and may lead to regulatory changes. So I will open up this survey and just walk you all through really quick what it will look like.
Can you make it bigger?
Yes, is this, I can zoom in a little bit. Okay. So when you open up the survey, you'll enter your name, you'll enter your tax map and lot, and everything on the survey is optional besides your name. So if you don't know information, you don't need to answer it. We would just appreciate as much information as you can. Your street number and name. And then it will open up a page about locating your well. So once you open this page, it will open a map and you can search your address or you can use current location. So I'll put in the address of the town office. And it will zoom in on your property location, and a blue marker will it will be placed on usually your property, which is not where your well is, so you'll have to move it yourself. So if you know where your well is, you just click in that location and it will move the blue marker. If you misplace it, you can delete it and replace it. Then it will ask you questions about your well. Like what year was your well constructed, if known, well type, well use, and then it will ask you about your water quality. Have you ever had any issues with water quality? Do you have a water treatment system? And then next, it will ask you about your wastewater system. Same deal as the well page. You can search your address and locate your your septic system on your property. And then it will ask you what type of wastewater system you have and multiple other questions. Again, none of these are required, so if you don't know them, you don't need to answer them. And that's it. It's a very simple survey, and we'll hope to get it to you in the next few weeks, if not sooner. So, thank you. Yeah.
Email or mail?
That is a really good question.
We're suggesting email.
Yeah.
If that's not possible, we could mail it, but ideally, if you do email, we have it electronically. If it comes in the mail, it has to be hand entered. I think it asks, excuse me, I believe it asks it in the form.
Oh no, Marin, I think they're asking if we are going to email them or if we're going to mail them with the survey.
We are going to introduce this a number of ways. It's going to go on the town website. There's a town bulletin that usually goes out, I'm hoping, with the tax bills. And that will introduce the project with all the ways to find the information. The information, the format itself will be on the town website. Did I cover everything?
When does it go live?
We don't have an exact date for when it's going to go live. We're aiming for next week, but it might be a few more weeks.
What's the goal?
I would say by the beginning, around the beginning of August, to tell you the truth.
Is the data from the survey publicly available, or is it kept within the town?
I'm sorry, I heard the question, whether the data would be publicly.
Yeah, you want to know if the data is going to be open to the public.
Actually, I believe the data showing the location, but not necessarily the information about your concerns.
Yes, that's true.
So in other words, whatever is public information by the state. So for example, I might have a concern in my well about quantity. That information would not necessarily be part of the database for public use. We would then take that information and compile an overview of perhaps certain sections of town that have this issue, but it would never be pinpointed at any one location.
So what is the goal for this? Once you collect this data, where
You want to go up to the microphone so we can get the question?
And thanks for having me. What is the goal of this study and what will be done with, you mentioned one instance, but what regulatory and other conservation kind of goals, what is the goal of the study?
There has been concern, well, we have had 3 years of droughts, and there has been a lot of concern in town about, everybody has a concern about their well. And part of the comprehensive plan talked about doing a survey of wells as well. So the idea of this is we are going to have more information. We might come up with some specific thing we're not thinking about that people are concerned about. And that would lead us to maybe take some corrective measures. I can go back to the first one of these studies was done, I believe, in 1984 with the Gerber-Rand report, at which time, and then we did it again in 2000. Those surveys showed that people had really strong concern about salt in their water. And that prompted enough interest for the town to get a grant to have people be able to do water tests and get that tested. So at this point, we're at the survey area, and I think once we get the information back, we know generally what we want to know, but it might point out some other larger concerns that we're not aware of. Is that helpful?
There are also concerns about water quality, including public health and quality at public beaches, and quality or like failing septic systems affecting commercial shellfish harvesting in public water.
So we're just hoping that we'll probably find out more that we're not thinking about right now, is my feeling.
I ask a question, I guess, I think you can hear me, that,
I'll repeat it if not.
Suppose you have a well and then you're part of the community system. Will that be covered by the survey? Is it placed to put it into sources?
If it's a community well, is that what you're asking?
Well, there's two questions there. If you're part of a community well, I believe, we'll have to check that, Miriam, if that question isn't part of the survey. And if you have more than one well on your system, some people have wells they're not using any longer and they've been abandoned. The state would like to know about those as well because they would like to begin putting monitors in for, especially those that were lost due to seawater intrusion. And they may not be used, but they could be a place to be monitoring because with sea level rise, that could also affect more seawater intrusion further into a property than it is now. So, and I believe you have, so you're going to be asked to do a separate form for each of your wells. Or each of your septics if you have more than one. Did that answer the question?
I think so.
Good. You're always welcome to go to the, to send an email under conservation at Town Harpswell, Maine, US with your specific question, and somebody from either the Resiliency Committee or the Conservation Commission will call you back and give you more detail. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll hand it over to the other intern for this other capture.
So now, introduce Catcher Kammerer. And he's been working on a future flood risk study that he is going to expand on. Just as an introduction, as you know, we have 216 miles of shoreline, which we talk about all the time. And it also, Harpswell contends with a certain amount of coastal flooding on king tide storms. The severe storms of January 24th, for example, when Catcher brings it up, it has a familiar site on it. We'll show kind of what had happened with 70 mile an hour wind gusts and up to 3 feet of storm surge. Then we found out the storms came from a different direction that year because they were winter storms, and it affected a lot more working waterfront and residential docks and floats and properties. It's interesting, the town approved approximately 120 building permits for storm damage. I didn't realize there were that many. So around 2018, to effectively plan for future flooding, the town of Harpswell, in coordination with a number of other communities, spearheaded a regional study to revise the FEMA floodplain maps, which you were just talking about, because many residents at that time felt that what they were seeing on those maps didn't reflect what was happening in their neighborhood. Based on that, the town had consultant come in and do a certain amount of the transects and search a number of areas and came up with the floodplain map that was just accepted in 2024, 2025, I'm not sure. And that's the floodplain map that we're using now. The problem with that is the FEMA floodplain maps look at they build on historical storms. So the town is recognizing the need that we want to be able to model what is going to happen in the future. And the data that we get on the FEMA maps does not accurately show that. In some cases it shows more, in some cases it might be less. So we, with Grant, worked with Stantec to develop the program that Catcher is going to go into, that actually is going to be user-friendly, it's going to be online and available by your street address. And it's also using more up-to-date data because they did more LiDAR flyovers than recently compared to what the other ones were done. And you will see that the newer storms produce substantially different scenarios. So basically, the Climate Council is asking towns to prepare for 1.5 feet of sea level rise by 2050 and 3.9 feet of sea level rise by 2100. Harpswell is a climate resilience partner with the state, and we have been using this data, these predictions, as we've done engineering studies for the last 4 years. We have had the ability with grants to study particular areas of town, roads in town, to see how they're going to be affected. So basically, the grant enables us to pinpoint more specifically. I believe there is 2,000. The number of transects is 2,500. 2,500 compared to the 200 we did before. And as you know, Harpswell has varying wind directions and various coves, and water handles differently than a flat beach would be in North Carolina, for example. So this project is going to be more specific to your area of town, and it will allow you to get a sense of where you're at and how you how you're going to fare, basically. And Catrick's going to go into the project and show you what it's all about. Thank you.
So in order for members of the public to actually interact with this tool, I've been working on what's called a story map, which is essentially microphone closer. Thank you. Which is essentially an interactive web page where you'll be able to do things like look up your own addresses and see all of the data that's been modeled by Stantec. Marianne just went over all of that information as far as sort of some of the background that's on the story map, and then there will be some instructions for you to reference when you actually go in and try to access the tool. And then down here is, so Stantec has created 9 maps. They're still doing some quality control, and they haven't released the final versions of these maps to us yet, so take everything with a grain of salt. But we're hoping to roll this tool out soon, ideally by the July 30th Select Board meeting. And so what they're mapping out various scenarios, combinations of the like the storm surge and sea level rise. So say like a 100-year storm and 4 feet of sea level rise. And they're sort of taking the intersection of the storm severity and sea level rise to design to understand different storm scenarios. And the one that I guess that FEMA maps cover is a 100-year storm, no sea level rise, and so Stantec modeled that scenario, and one of the ways that you'll be able to use this tool is to slide back and forth between the FEMA maps and Stantec's maps when you go in and take a look at your address. So there's a search bar at the top. I can type in, I was talking with some people in the office earlier, and we decided we'd look at Mackerel Cove landing during for this example, and it will zoom in and locate a pin precisely where you've searched, and then if you zoom in a little further, then you'll be able to compare, use this slider to slide back and forth between, here are the town's existing, the effective FEMA maps updated with the letter of map revision from 2024, and on this side you'll have the Stantec maps, and you'll be able to compare the two. Right now, Stantec's maps are a lot blurrier if you zoom in than they will be when we finally release them. That's just due to some technical hiccups that we're still working through in the town office, but that will be fixed by the time the tool is released. So it'll look something more like this, where you'll be able to see the individual pixels. Right now, the only kind of file that we've been able to upload into the software is akin to basically a Google Earth file, which the resolution doesn't improve as you zoom in, so we're working on fixing that issue. But you'll be able to, zoom in and out and look at the information that's relevant to you around your address. You can turn on and off different layers of the map that Stantec has modeled, a few different kinds of flood data, so you can sort of isolate those and their explanations of what each of these layers mean in the story map, so you can go and reference those. And Stantec was able to provide their own language to explain exactly what the layers are referencing here. One thing, there's not a legend right now for Stantec's layers, that's just another shortcoming of the kind of file that we've been able to upload into the software so far. But there will be a legend to clearly show how many feet of wave run up or what the extent of the flooding is going to be. So you can reference that as well in this tool. Marianne and I welcome any questions.
I've got a quick one.
Yeah.
Can you kind of back out a little bit and give us any kind of broad brush strokes about what the new data shows in terms of the impact of Harpswell as opposed to the old FEMA data that you said was not as accurate, so we can kind of get a sense of what this really means and how important it is?
Yeah, I don't want to say too much right now, in part because they are still finalizing. They are running quality control tests. So, and if Marianne wants to speak to this a little bit more.
I'll only mention that every time we make a small change with them, they have to rerun the program. And I didn't realize how long it takes to rerun that program because of the size. It takes almost 24 hours to rerun whatever change they made because of all the transects. So the interesting thing, though, you will find is when you see the transects, they're going to show as little lines on the location, and they're going to be positioned to show wind direction as well. So, for example, Nathan, where you have property out in the bay, it might show a transect, and it would show the direction that wave runoff would probably occur from. So that's a little extra feature that you wouldn't normally expect, I don't think, to see in something like this. That's just kind of an overview.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention now that you bring it up too is that you'll be able to click on individual transects near to your property. So right now they're showing up as these like purple dots in the water, but it'll come up with a table. I guess this is, yeah, it'll come up with a table containing some of the data for all 9 of the flood scenarios that they incorporated into their modeling. And there's going to be more instructions as to how to interpret that in the story map itself. So that's just another helpful aspect of the tool.
Would you please come up? It's just that I know, it's a pain in the neck. If I had a hand microphone, I'd give it to you.
I think you already mentioned this, Marianne, that the FEMA data is historical, based upon, I think you said 100 years. I think they do 100 years.
They do 100-year storm and 500-year storm as well, but I don't believe that there's a lot of 500-year storm.
How far back do you go?
Well, this is basically the frequency with which we would expect a storm to take place. So like a 100-year storm should take place on average once every 100 years. A 500-year storm should take place.
So that's your FEMA database, okay. So with Stantec then, you're just looking at what, the past 5 years, is that your data? I'm trying to get a sense of the data you use for FEMA versus the stuff you're using from Stantec, and how Stantec modeling has been verified maybe in other systems as being a good predictor of this type of thing. Do you have any examples in any other cities where this problem is being addressed with this technology?
Do you have something to say about? So, well, I mean, so Stantec is incorporating more recent storms, which had some unique characteristics that the historical FEMA data wasn't able to account for, but I can't speak to where specifically Stantec has worked in the past. I don't know if you need to vouch for their track record.
Yeah, and I think this happens to be in coordination with the FEMA maps. However, we were looking at it from a resiliency standpoint of what we can expect at each part of town. And what they're doing differently is they include wave runoff and wind direction, and they may include if there's an island across from your address, that all affects the amount of storm surge that you get. So again, this is a modeling tool, but it's based on so many more places in town. Our hope is that we feel basically it's going to be a much better predictor. And that's kind of what we're looking at.
I have two questions. I think Miriam said that planning basis for 2050 is a 1.5 increase in sea level. The first question is that from today or is it from 10 years ago? And the second question was, I thought I heard you say 2,100, 29 feet, but is it 2.9 or what was the planning basis?
It's 3.9 in 2100, and we are planning for, and this is here again, this is a planning tool when we try to design for keeping a road passable, let's just say. And we are designing for what is expected for 1.5 by 2050. So we're designing to keep a road, for example, open up till 2050. Does that answer your question?
I guess that that's 1.5 from today, or 1.5 from 10 years ago?
I'm not sure, but it's kind of as of, they started it, let's just say they started it 5 or 6 years ago, and that was the number, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, these are pretty recent FEMA projections. Anything else?
Thank you. We hope you take advantage of it when it comes out.
Thank you so much.
So the Stantec data, I mean, I think the nature of one of the questions was, have they been used other places and why are we using them? But, so Hartsville is applying for federal funding for resiliency grants. So is this data accepted by the agencies that are issuing grants? Is there value to the town in terms of using the data in ways that are beneficial to respond to the kinds of?
All I can say is that originally the town hired Stantec because they didn't feel the data from FEMA was accurate. They presented a report, took years, and FEMA accepted that report. What we're doing isn't really directly affecting FEMA. We're thinking it from a different viewpoint. That's helping the town plan to have their infrastructure take into account sea level rise, as well as yourself. You know, when you're getting ready to replace your dock, or when you're getting ready to make some changes in your house, how long of what I'm doing is going to be good, or should I be doing something a little bit different if I want it to last more than a few years? Yeah.
So the reason we ask you to go to the mic when you speak is, yes, so people in the room can hear you better, but this is also being recorded for television and the internet. And people watching at home will not be able to hear a word you said. And I think what you have to say is important, so please go to the mic to speak.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any more questions on this subject? Water and sewers out of the way. I'll give you an update on the emergency surface building and the recycling building. We have two projects coming up. I'll give you a timeline right now on the emergency services. No, you're here. The town hired Port City architects to put together conceptual drawings and cost estimate. Voters approved $6 million bond in June 2025. Then the town hires a construction manager, Wright Ryan, with a great reputation, early estimates, indicates additional funds may be added to build the concept design. The town applies with Senator Collins and King for $1.5 million of congressional funding that must pass the Congress by October 1st. We'll wait to see on that one. The town begins planning process for detailed design, siting for the building. The building committee we meet every 2 weeks. The committees are taped and they can be viewed on the town's YouTube channel. The committee members from each of the 3 departments participate with the architect, construction manager, and design and building matters. The original site is across the recycling station, but it wasn't going to work out. The new proposed site is to the right when you drive in the recycling station, right near the TV station. There is a wetland there. It's being evaluated. We met with DEP a couple of weeks ago, and what we thought was a vernal pool wasn't a vernal pool. So we're dealing with that right now. And to reduce costs, the town went from a 4-bay design to a 3-bay design, and the bays will allow 2 vehicles in each bay. The town's municipal firefighters and paramedic service with Midcoast Hospital Maine will move into the building when it's done. So our full-time paramedics will be there along with whatever's staffed with at the time. The new building will have office space, training rooms, workout room, banks, and more importantly, a decontamination area. Right now, we don't really have anything like that, but they can go into a shower room and get everything off them. This new body complex will meet all the new safety needs that are required by the state of Maine and the federal government for firefighting buildings, which are extensive. So, any questions on this building? The next building, we put together a working group to look at the recycling building, and they all came to the same conclusion after walking. I don't know if anybody's been in there lately, but the idea is to tear it down and start over. It would be easier and frankly cheaper. It's a metal building. You get a pre-engineered design, put it on the same footprint. The foundation of that is extremely thick, it's around 16 inches. So it could be used. Some of it have to be dug up for drainage and that type of thing. We can reuse the footprint. So the estimates we got before were pretty high, but we're the same architects we hired to help put this thing together with whatever designs, whatever safety that have to be in there. It's got to be insulated now. We thought it had to be sprinkled, but our town planner found some information that that may not be the case, but save quite a bit of money. So those are the 2 biggies. We do have the money put aside, we think, for the recycling building. I would say for the full amount. It's been put, the last 10 years we've put it aside. So, any questions on $7 million? Yeah. Oh, on the other. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I just don't understand what's driving the replacement of the reclamation recycling building.
First of all, the parlings are rusted out that hold the roof up. If you go over there, ask Chuck for a tour. We talked about saving it, and then the people in the working group, there are 2 engineers, and you get 2 engineers and they agreed. So it tells you something's going on. And one of them's another guy's a commercial builder, myself. It's almost 50 years old. I think it's 47. Time to get around to it will be 48. So then the newer building hopefully will last longer than this one. Nobody here is going to care. Yeah. Matt might, and our 2 interns.
So when does this construction start, both on the new firehouse and the recycle center? When does it start and when's the date of pretend completion?
We're hoping to break ground on the fire station this fall. We had, was it Collier, was the survey. Yeah, and get with a little permit stage from the state, DEP, our own town.
Even we have to get permits.
Yeah, planning board. And the permits will be simple for the recycling building.
Okay, so but do you have a construction breaking of the ground for the recycle center?
We don't just yet. We're working on it. Chuck's anxious, so.
Okay.
But that too, we're hoping this fall.
Okay.
It slows down. It's not a good time for him to not have a building right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But come October, November, things slow down around here a little bit.
Thank you.
No, thanks.
And really double thanks for this meeting tonight.
Oh, it's always good. So it isn't.
Thank you for having this meeting again. Quick question. The transfer center is already being used and you're planning to pull it out and replace it. Do you have plans or ideas of how you're going to continue service during the transfer station rebuilding?
We went through replacing the compactors not too long ago, and Chuck was able to arrange dumpsters and so that you'd hardly know that anything was going on. So the building itself is there's a lot of things stored in there. It's not most of it, except for the return of models and those kinds of things, aren't an interface for the public. So you'd hardly know. I mean, I'm sure Chuck has got it all figured out. Yeah.
Hi. What is the cost? You said the money is set aside, and I'm wondering what that cost is. And then my second question is...
For the recycling?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
You have that in the
While you're looking that up, I'll ask my second question. I'm assuming the architect that you've had design this is someone who is experienced in designing sort of the most recent type of recycle center equipment and so on, so that it does have a longevity?
They do have some experience. But most of the equipment, like David just said, is kind of it's outside the building, the compactors.
So that's not involved in them?
No, compactors,
Not
they really
replaced.
aren't. And, we recently had three-phase power run down the mountain road. It stops at the townhouse actually right now. Eventually, it's going under the new network grids to connect the two sides of town. That's what CMP's plan is. But one of the other things for the recycling plant is set aside an area for the town. We really don't have a public works department, but we need stuff. We have equipment that needs to be stored. So Chuck's willing to share some space there for that.
Okay.
On the recycling center project, we carried over about 900,000. We added 300,000 in 2026, so we have a $1.2 million budget. I think it really depends on the final design that the architect comes up with, what that cost is going to be, and whether we can do it with 1.2 or we may need some more. We'll have to wait and see.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on this or anything else? This is where the meeting always gets quiet. Oh, yep.
Earlier, everybody keeps saying a 1-800 number, but nobody's telling us what the 1-800 number is. And I don't want to be calling the town hall tomorrow asking what the 1-800 number is. And I'm going to be in the vortex because I'm here, the letter's going to go to Florida. So I need that 1-800 number.
What is that 1-800 number?
The assessing folks have left the room. I would say call the town office. We will have, that's a local number, and we can put you in touch with that. The sample letter will be posted on the website. I heard the assessing department say that. So within the next day or two, that will be a very well-known number, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
Are all people gone from vision and all that?
Yeah. Go and see Debbie tomorrow. Katie Neal for Parks and Rec.
I only have fun updates, so I thought I would end the meeting that way. Also, a quick thank you to Catcher and Miriam. Very brave of you for presenting in front of all these people, and you guys did a great job. Just a couple of updates that are happening in my world. Obviously, we opened up the boat launch at Mitchell Field, which has been a great success, and lots of folks out there enjoying it. We have the lobster boat races coming up on July 26th down at Mitchell Field. You should definitely come out and check them out. They're offering a new grand prize this year of $1,000, and the funds raised goes to the Santa Fund, an amazing local nonprofit organization. In celebration of the 250th, we have a town-wide history scavenger hunt, which I included some of that information over there. Colonial Days this coming Saturday in Hartsville Center, which will have some reenactors. I'll have some children programming going on in Centennial Hall, reading of the Declaration of Independence, food, good time. Ongoing free Tai Chi and yoga classes this summer. Bandstand concerts on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. And also over on that table, we updated the hiking guides to reflect all the new trails and have a hiking club in partnership with the Land Trust. So lots of stuff going on and a great excuses to get outside this summer. Thank you. No one can be mad at that, right?
Sometimes. All right, before we close, anything else? Whatever's on anybody's mind, except for Dawn.
I will add that we no longer lock the gate at Mitchell Field because the boat launch is open. So if you want to go enjoy the sunset, knock yourself out. They're beautiful.
Yeah, thanks, Don.
But don't knock anybody else up.
Yeah. Okay. If there's nothing else, I'd say we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.